panelists comes from diverse background, covering local Borneo community in Bawang Asan, the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission, a Malaysian regulatory body, and the Association for Progressive Communications, an international network of civil society organizations. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat, and the panelists will try to provide an answer after their talk during the question and answer session. Without further ado, let me introduce the first speakers, Dr. Ray Moreno and Dr. Sarabani. Both of them are from the Association for Progressive Communications. Dr. Ray Moreno studied the main drivers that could make a community network in rural South Africa sustainable and scalable as part of his PhD. For the last 3 years, he has been with the Association for Progressive Communications, where he co-leads its community networks initiative, overseeing projects in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. He also coordinates its policy and regulatory work to create a more enabling regulatory framework for local operators and community networks. He will present on best practices to create an enabling regulatory environment for community networks. For Dr. Sarabani, Banerjee Bellu is currently the Asia Regional Coordinator for Association for Progressive Communications for the Community Networks, Connecting the Unconnected project. She is also the Senior Research Scientist, hosted by the Spoken Tutorial Project at the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, Mumbai, India. She holds a PhD in Demography from the University of Groningen, the Netherlands. Over to you, Dr. Ray Moreno.
Hello, Daniel. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm going to share my screen because Sarabani and myself, we've prepared some slides to present a bit of our work. I believe you can see them now. So, yeah. Well, as Daniel was saying, I'm co-leading the Community Networks Initiative in APC. The Association for Progressive Communications, for those of you who don't know, it is an association of civil society organizations from all over the world. At the moment, we have about 58 members operating in 72 or 73 countries. And the Community Networks Initiative is about precisely creating an enabling environment for local operators and community networks in the global south. In Asia, we partner with our regional coordinator, Sarabani Belur, is hosted in IIT Bombay in India, but we also partner with other organizations such as ASORCOM in Myanmar, BAVE in India, Common Room Network Foundation in Indonesia. Sarabani will tell us a bit more about it, right? But I just wanted to discuss a bit of the rationale of why we are talking about community networks. I'm sorry I couldn't attend the other sessions that you had. I heard Daniel saying this is the fourth session, so maybe this has been covered already. But maybe just as a bit of a background, no? This graph here shows how the internet penetration is growing, or the number of internet users is growing around the world. And it has seen a very big increase in the blue bar. We can see how year after year the number of internet users is growing, but we can also see that the internet is that very same internet growth is somehow plateauing at around 50% of the population, right? It's not only that internet growth is plateauing, but if we look at the trend of how fast that internet is growing, is really going down, is really decreasing. This is something that we are seeing pretty much in every country, pretty much in every place. And the fact is that if we look at another dimension or one of the indicators that might be affordability, it looks like we have connected the easy half. We have connected those who have disposable income to spend on communications. We have connected those that are in urban areas that are, close by other supporting infrastructure such as electricity, roads, buildings, etc. We could talk also about the literacy of those who are connected, about the gender of those who are using the network and that are using communications. We could also look at the devices and who is owning the devices and which devices are being used to connect to the internet, right? But the reality is that over the last 20, 30 years, there has been a massive growth. There has been a lot of people enjoying the benefits of internet connectivity, yet at the same time, we are seeing that those models that have managed to connect the first half of the population in the planet are showing, how can I say, difficulties of connecting the other half, connecting those that are living with less economic resources in more rural and remote areas where that supporting infrastructure does not exist. Wherever those models that were based on profit were not able to reach, or are not able to reach, or are not able to provide the profits that those investors are seeking, right? So we need to start looking into alternative connectivity models that could provide connectivity to that other half. So let me pass it to Sarbani, who is going to tell us a bit about how community networks are looking like in Asia. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Carlos, and thank you to the ASSET team for inviting us for this session. So I would like to say that I would like to discuss about the community networks in Asia. And next slide, Carlos. So what is it that it is? I mean, Carlos has discussed a lot about the that we have connected only the first half. What about the rest? And he has also mentioned about the alternative models for connectivity. And herein, we would like to talk. I would like to talk about community networks. Community networks are networks that are built by the community, with the help of the community and for the people in the community. So it is not a top-down approach of connectivity, just like the telecom operators or the government fiber network does, but this is a bottom-up approach to connectivity. So it is through Association for Progressive Communications funds for community networks in Asia. They are our peer grantees. We have one common room in Indonesia, one in Myanmar, that is ASSORCOM. Then there is Serverlots in India and BIF in India. This year, we are going to include three more grantees as part of our LockNet local access network project. So why are these community networks? So when we are talking about these community networks, you will understand that these community networks are built or are seeded to grow wherever there is a problem, in the sense that affordability is a problem, affordability of connectivity is a problem, accessibility to connectivity is a problem, and of course availability is a problem. So in these locations, community networks are seeded to grow as an alternative model, and now the network becomes a collective ownership. So there are various models like There is a model in Brazil where it is a cooperative model. Similar way in the Asia region also, I will be discussing a little more about it, how it is a collective ownership by the community. It can be an online connectivity, it can be an offline connectivity, and it catalyzes local economies to grow, because there are a lot of local economies. I mean, there are a lot of things that are very local, like for example, local knowledge, art and craft. Indigenous communities have various other things to share. So these are something that these community networks catalyze to grow. And of course, local content development is another thing. Next slide. So these community networks, as I just mentioned, these are aligned with local sensitivities and needs. Like, for example, to understand why do we need that connectivity for? It can be for making a hospital connected to for the telemedicine to the nearby center, or it can be for a bank which is not there in that rural remote village because there is no connectivity. So these networks are aligned with the local sensitivities and needs. And what happens is that in these when we are deploying these networks, community participation becomes an important aspect. So because why community participation is important? Because we can fund for the capital investment, the capex, but the operational ones are not, we cannot fund for it. So the operation and maintenance of the network has to be done by the community, for which the community involvement is there. And then, of course, there is a gender-centered approach where women are equally participating in the network as well as utilizing the connectivity in the network as much as men do in the network. And of course, ensure skill transfer to community members, because in these remote locations, sometimes they lack the skill, like digital literacy skills to use the connectivity in a meaningful manner. Next slide. So I will tell you about the community networks that are there in Asia. Common Room in Indonesia, you can see more about the organization in the web link that is given below. So it has seeded 2 community networks to grow. One is in Ciptaglar and the other one is in Cilacap. So currently they are doing the deployment in Cilacap. They have completed it in Ciptaglar. So they work in partnership with a bandwidth provider, that is Avinet. And so the entire network is an online network. Because it has the bandwidth provider, Avinet is a telecom operator, so they are able to distribute the bandwidth within the community. So there is coupon system by which the people in the community can use. Now, what is happening is that they are focusing a lot on capacity building for community networks, because Indonesia is very wide in expanse. So they want that the capacity building, once it is done, it can spread all across Indonesia. Women's participation is also there, by which women are doing a lot of training within the community to become the seed sowers of community network. But also that it is also providing local job opportunities for the youth, because they become riggers, or they become they can repair the devices. So it is enabling job opportunities. And currently, in the new project that Common Room is currently doing, they are also developing the School of Community Networks in Indonesia. So that's one of the deliverables that they are working on. Now, so this is the network architecture. Next slide, Carlos. So now this is the network architecture, and you can see that how the internet is coming from the Avinet gateway. And from there, how it is spreading into the community through point-to-point links and Wi-Fi access points. Next slide. There is another community network in Maharashtra, in India, that is BIF. BIF has seeded it to grow. It is in a remote village in Pathardi in Maharashtra, 5 hours drive from Mumbai. Connectivity is at only one location, and it is through a SIM card-based cellular router. And the rest of the network is an offline mesh network, wherein the community uses it for community radio. There is a platform, knowledge sharing platform, because this is indigenous community, local tribal community. So they collect all the information about their agriculture produce, the vegetables, the seeds, the trees, biodiversity. All the information is stored in a local access server. So they are creating that. And what is the capacity building model that BIF uses is a e-dost model. That is a partner or a guide for the people within the community. Wherein women, we are also wherein we have empowered a banking correspondent who is a woman and a digital correspondent who enables the banking and the e-governance services to the people in the village. And what is a sustainable model is that all the art and craft or the local knowledge is aggregated into products, into some type of products, especially the art and craft, and then it is sold in an e-commerce platform. So that's a sustainable model for them. Next slide. So this is the network architecture, and I mentioned that this is the online connectivity is only at one location, and the uses of online connectivity are for mobile recharge, banking services, and so on. The green one on the right-hand side, and the offline is for local content generation, and everything is stored in that local access server. If you can see in that square box. Yeah. So the next slide, please. The next community network in India is Serverlot, and Serverlot seeded a community network to grow in Halekote in Karnataka, which is 3 hours drive from Bengaluru. And it is for 6 years, it was an offline mesh network. So it was completely offline. Only last year that they have procured, this year, in the beginning of this year, they have procured the bandwidth from RailTel, but it is only for self-use. They cannot resell the bandwidth. And they work on open source technologies like Libre Router. That is one of the only open source router that they work on, of course. Then there is other community radio as a platform for community participation. So all the local knowledge is aggregated by the community through the community radio. And what is the sustainable model that they have is that they also have a crafter space where the crafts are sold online. So they make the craft and then they are sold, that is sold online. One of the technology solutions that Serverlot has completed during the pandemic is on the webinar Pi development. For that has facilitated, it is completely an open source thing, technology development, and it is being used by the community for online education during this pandemic. So it is completely fueled by the pandemic and need of the hour or the community. And this is the network architecture of Serverlot. So you can see that it is the internet is coming in, but most of it is an offline mesh network. So within the community, it has Wi-Fi access points that is intranet based. It is not internet. Next slide, please. Then this is some of the uses of the internet by the community, offline mesh network by the community. The next slide, please. And this is the fourth community network, that is ASORCOM in Myanmar. And it is in the Shin state in Myanmar. And this is a community wireless cooperative. So this is a wireless cooperative wherein bulk bandwidth is procured only at one location, and then it is distributed within the community, but it is sort of free of cost. Distributed to the community, and community in turn participates to enable the mesh network within the community. There is community radio, there are training centers, there is a football club, there is a cross-stitch club. So, women, men, and the youth, everyone is involved in the community network in ASORCOM in Shin state, by which each one contributes equally to the community network, and the community network procures a bulk bandwidth at one location and distributes it. So it is free of cost distribution, but in turn they use it in a different manner. They enable training to the youth, and of course their sustainable model is the savory social enterprise for e-commerce. So coffee, local made coffee, weaving products, everything is sold by them in that e-commerce platform. Next slide. So there are a lot of policy challenges that these community networks in Asia face. One of the important challenges that is that there is a gap in policy for bandwidth reselling. Like, you know, even if there is, like, you look into these various community networks, Myanmar ASORCOM is not able to resell the bandwidth because there is regulatory challenges over there. So similar way for Serverlux also. So there are policy gaps in in India. I will be able to say that for bandwidth reselling. So that is one of the things. Then there is the enabling environment for community networks for the last mile connectivity is still not there in Asia. You know, it is still thought of as, oh yeah, we will be able to do, the government will be able to do. So it's still, we have to actually sow those seeds for that enabling environment. And of course, technology advancement not conducive to the growth of community networks. Like currently they are talking about 5G, which is, there is no, in some communities don't even have voice connectivity. So it is still a long way to go for any type of technology advancement to come in and be used by the people in these remote locations. Then, of course, there is a lot of dependency on skill and digital literacy for the use of connectivity, especially in locations where there is less literacy. Levels of literacy are low. And of course, what we feel is that when connectivity is enabled, online connectivity, if it is there, let it be online connectivity. Otherwise, in an offline connectivity, we should be able to give the same quality as in an online connectivity. And of course, privacy and security challenges needs to be looked, because these are certain things that are overlooked in the last mile when we are enabling the communities in the last mile. Over to you, Carlos. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sarbani, for that. And just briefly, because we can discuss a bit more on the Q&A, no? But our framework for our understanding for a conducive policy and regulation for community networks is based on the understanding that the world, or most of the economies that we look at, or the way that the telecommunications sector has been regulated, is based on the fact that it's only considered as a global economy, or for a long time, only big market players, multinational companies that are able to source the connectivity from the international submarine gateways in the coast all the way to the last mile, were able to provide that connectivity. However, if we looked at some of the words, for instance, from this French economist, Fernand Braudel, he established that there are 3 levels of economy, one being that global economy that we were talking about, but then there being others like the local market economy, some of the market economy that Sarbani was highlighting, as well as other non-market economies that should be considered when regulating any market. You can find examples with let's say, with the restaurants. There are international food chains that we can all name. There are local restaurants that participate in the market economy, and there are subsistence economy type of sellers and resellers that are providing that type of food. So, applying that logic to the telecom sector would be very interesting. And we look at it from an analogy of a jar of stones, right? If we try to fill the entire jar of stones, that being the 100% of the internet users, with very big, large stones, those being those multinational operators, there are only so many of those stones that could fit in the jar. Even even if, and still, if you try to fill this jar with liquid, you will realize that almost half of the jar is still empty. If you look at the liquid that it fills, yet there is no other big stone that could fit in there. But there is a lot of space if we start filling the jar with smaller stones that could be the internet service providers. Still, local market economy. Still, they know their clients. They provide access in a city or in a suburb. They don't want to grow. They are not interested to grow, but they still participate in the market logic in terms of the economy. But still, if we fill the jar with water, there is plenty of space that these market economies are not able to cover, and therefore, and those gaps are used by the non-market economy actors to fill all these spaces, and in this case, they will be able to provide connectivity in these areas that the market cannot cover. Quickly, because I think we are running out of time, I think the first element would be recognition in policy document. The International Telecommunications Union started from 2017 to recognize the importance of these community access ICT facilities that might have been the telecenters long ago, but also small and non-for-profit community operators that are providing these services, and through appropriate regulatory measures, they are able to even provide more of this connectivity. Some of the options at the regulatory level would be licensing options. As Sarbani was saying, if you are not part of a regulated sector, such as the telecommunication sector, you are not able to buy or procure wholesale pricing. You are not able to resell. You are there, and the regulator can come and seize your equipment or fine you because you are doing something illegal. There has been many countries that have been creating very conducive regulations around either creating license exemptions for private networks and non-for-profits, such as Brazil, Mexico, South Africa, or creating specific licenses for community networks, such as the case of Argentina and Uganda. In many countries in the global north, there are simple authorizations and notification systems, although there is still a significant amount of regulatory compliance. All those elements around the licensing options are things that need to be considered when enabling community operators. Recently, last month, we were working with the Communications Authority of Kenya that made available through public consultation a license and set a spectrum framework for community networks. So there are more and more countries that are jumping into these options to allow these community networks. The issue of the spectrum, I mean, it's pretty clear that most of the communications that are going to reach that last mile are going to be wireless. Most of the community networks and the models that Sarbani was talking about, they are using Wi-Fi because it's the only license-exempt spectrum that is available for everyone to use. Even though in some countries you need to pay for it, or still is available because it's license exempt. But there are many other spectrum frequencies that could be used. This is a quote from the Ofcom. Ofcom is the UK regulator, from the CTO of the regulator in the UK, saying that communities could actually create their own 4G and 5G networks. And it's not only a quote. After this quote, Ofcom has created regulations for shared spectrum and local spectrum, whereby communities and small ISPs in the UK are setting up their 4G and 5G infrastructure. There is only one case in the Global South, in Mexico, where communities can do this. There are steps in Colombia, there are steps in Brazil, but very few countries have been bold into allowing communities to set up their own, or to allow them to use 4G and 5G spectrum to set up their own communications. There are other important regulatory elements. I'm not going to get into them because I'm running out of time. Active and passive infrastructure sharing, financial support, access to network information. All of it is on this report that we recently made available to the Global Symposium for Regulators last year. The link is there on the presentation. We will share it with the organizers. And maybe, sorry, there is a typo there. A few comments into the Asian context. As you saw, most of the examples are from other countries, are from Africa, are from Latin America, are from Canada, the United States, the UK, etc. In Asia, as far as our research has gone into, there has been very little support from a regulatory perspective for this type of small and non-for-profit operators, and this has come to the fore very obviously in the preparatory meetings for the World Telecommunications Development Conference. Both in Latin America and in Africa, there are, well, in this conference, the next 4-year action plan for the development sector of the International Telecommunications Union and the regional offices is discussed. In both Latin America and Africa, there are plans to include supportive measures for community networks in the two regions. There have been discussions, there is text that is being proposed to go into that action plan. In Asia, they were not even discussed. Local operators, rural connectivity was not even part of the discussions in the WTDC preparatory meetings for the Asia Pacific. So there are work that needs to be done from the countries, from the national delegations, from the civil society in the region to try to push for more conducive regulation and to highlight some of the examples of these communities and how they are taking communications in their hands wherever the market is not able to reach. So yeah, just leaving this quote there, talking about the internet ecosystem and how everyone is talking about the next big thing. And we do believe that the next big thing in telecommunications operator ecosystem will be a lot of small things, a lot of community service operators that will be covering these gaps that the market is not able to cover. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk, and happy to engage more either during the Q&A or right after. It's been a pleasure, and I'm sure it will be to continue collaborating with the Sarawak University. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ray Moreno, and thank you, Dr. Sarbani. The next speaker is Mr. Adiman, the Director of the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission in Sarawak. He has served in various roles for the past 18 years with the Commission in the areas of compliance, policy, and digital infrastructure development, both at the state level and MCMC headquarters. He has worked on numerous digital infrastructure initiatives, mainly on mobile and fixed broadband infrastructures in Sarawak. Mr. Adiman holds a BA in Human Science from International Islamic University, Malaysia, and a Master in Data Science from the University of Sheffield, UK. His talk will be on accelerating digital inclusiveness, connecting the last miles. Over to you, Mr. Adiman.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Let me just share the screen here. Okay, can you all see the screen here?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, hold on. My apology. Bit of a technical issue here. Hold on for a while. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, maybe I can just share on the PDF version of my paper. So thank you very much, Daniel. I'm sorry for the technical glitch just now. Well, I'm happy to be present today at this conference. I see any familiar names like Dr. Alvin, Dr. Roger Harris, which is the I think the pioneer for the rural internet centers in Sarawak, someone that we look upon when we first roll out our rural internet initiatives in Sarawak. So my presentation today is basically to focus on the initiatives and mechanism undertaken by MCMC in expanding the digital infrastructure in the states to support the digital inclusions effort of the country. Let me just start with the some key statistics for Sarawak with a population of 2.8 million. Current 4G coverage in populated area for Sarawak at the moment is 72%. And in terms of 2G coverage, we are at 88%. So you're probably wondering why I don't put the 3G coverage there. That's because we are in the phase of sunsetting the 3G network, whereby we will gradually turn off the 3G network nationwide by end of this year. So in terms of the mobile broadband, at the moment we have 2.8 million subscriptions in the States. So basically the number looks high there because individuals of having more than one SIM card. And in terms of the fixed broadband, we have 187,000 subscribers at the moment in Sarawak. Okay, the situation during the COVID-19 pandemic, it has taken a great toll on the network nationwide, whereby the internet traffic has increased by 30 to 70%, and the internet usage has also moved to residential area by 50 to 70%. At the same time, internet speeds has been reduced by 30 to 40% nationwide. And we are working with the telecommunication companies basically to perform network optimizations, traffic readjustment, and also increasing the capacity of the network locally and also internationally. So in year 2020, the MCMC has introduced these JENDELA initiatives, or in English it is called a National Digital Connectivity Plan, aims at providing a wider coverage and better quality broadband experience in the country. So our national aspirations by year 2025 is basically to have 100% 4G coverage in populated area. Secondly, gigabit access for fixed broadband. And then the third one is the 100 megabit mobile broadband speeds. And to materialize this, we have put in place regulatory and policy interventions. Some of you might remember that our Prime Minister has announced on the policy call for the internet as a public utility in Malaysia. With that, there will be involvement with the local authorities, the local council, including the developers of new housing areas, for instance, with the amendment of the building bylaws, and in the case of Sarawak, it's a building ordinance, whereby we try to mandate telecom infra in new housing or development areas. And also the introduction of the GPPI, or the Communication Infra Planning Guideline documents, for the telcos and also developers in the country. So there are three key initiatives under the National Digital Connectivity Plan, or the JENDELA. One is the expansion of the fixed and cellular coverage. In terms of the fixed broadband, it is the expansion and upgrading of the streaming services nationwide. Cellular coverage basically involve the construction of new telecommunication towers nationwide. The second one is the upgrading of the nationwide cellular coverage from 2G, 3G to 4G coverage. And the third one, as I mentioned earlier on, is the 3G sunsetting with the gradual retirement of 3G networks in Malaysia. So, okay, let's focus on the Sarawak. For the JENDELA implementation in Sarawak, phase 1, 2020 to 2022 targets. For fixed broadband, for fiber optic home passes, our target is to achieve 43,000 home passes by 2022. we are doing quite okay with this one, with 70% completion at the moment. The second one is the construction of new telecommunication towers, with a total of 818 new telecommunication towers for Sarawak. The number is quite low there because we haven't actually awarded the bulk of the project itself. We are looking at probably July and August to award another 636 new towers. We are looking at 1 year implementation for these new towers. And in terms of the mobile broadband upgrading, we're looking at 2,800 plus upgrading works on the base station from 2G, 3G to 4G network. And also in July or August, we will award a new initiative, which is the satellite broadband. It's basically Wi-Fi via VSAT, collective access to broadband. But this one is mainly for the rural areas. Okay, under the Communication and Multimedia Act of the country, MCMC has been tasked to manage the Universal Service Provisions Fund, which was established under the Section 204 of the Communication and Multimedia Act, which is basically a contribution from licensees with revenue exceeds the minimum revenue threshold as determined by MCMC. There are two rollout mechanisms for USP. In some countries, it's called USF, no? The Universal Service Fund and all that. One is the open bidding or tender, which is applicable to all licensees and where they can submit the draft plans upon issuance of the tender notice. And the second one is the major contributor schemes, whereby this is only applicable for licensees who contribute to fund exceeding sum determined by MCMC. And the submission of draft plans is basically before 30th September annually. So the USP fund is basically is meant for the rollout of infrastructure in the rural areas only. In terms of the evolution of the USP initiatives, we started with the telephony project in 2002, whereby we focused mainly on the provision of public payphones in the rural and suburban area. In 2007, we embarked on the Community Broadband Center, Internet Center for the suburban and rural area, and the project is still ongoing. In the 14 years of its implementation, it has gone several transformation, basically to improve the sustainability of the initiatives. And in 2009, we embarked on the cellular coverage expansion program, basically the construction of new towers in rural areas, followed by the mobile broadband upgrading and also fixed broadband expansion. I would like to focus on the Pusat Internet Community or Community Internet Center. In each of this Community Internet Center, there is two sections, basically the training room and also the general surfing area. It is managed by the service providers appointed by MCMC. In Sarawak, TM has the most in terms of the Pusat Internet Community, with 74 community internet centers in the states. And each of these centers is managed by the manager and assistant manager appointed from the local community. In terms of the services offered at the Pusat Internet Community or PIK, we have internet access 20 megabit per second. This is for internet center that are connected to fiber or microwave connections. For VSAT, for PIK with VSAT connectivity, the speed is at the moment is 8 megabit per second. And at each of PIK, we have 20 PCs, 10 for general use and 10 for training use. But again, in certain areas in the state, we have internet center with only 10 PCs or even 15 PCs. It basically depends on the availability of space in the building offered by the community. At the PRK, we offer printing, photocopy, laminating service at very minimum charges, and also we offer free Wi-Fi access. For the usage of PC and internet usage, there's a minimum fee. For members, it's about RM1 per hour. Well, that's about 30-40 cents in terms of USD. And for students, senior citizen, and disabled, it is free. In terms of operation time, it's from 8 to 5 p.m., 7 days a week, except for public holiday. In terms of the content of the Pusat Internet Community, we have digital literacy program where we offer training services for the local community, especially the students and also the senior citizen, on the usage of Microsoft Office, video creations. On the outreach program and advocacy, we have Safe Internet campaign in place. Klik dengan bijak, we call it here. Apart from that, PRK is also a touch point for MCMC, where we try to provide the community with the latest initiatives by the government. Like for example, the digital switchover initiative last time. PRK has been the contact points for the local community in terms of the rollout of digital TV in the States. And also we offer the robotic STEMs and IoT courses in partnership with the service provider of each PIK. In Sarawak, we have, at the moment, we have 93,000 registered members in the States. And apart from that, we offer several additional service. Sorry, the title is in Malay. We are looking at courier services, e-health services. These are some of the initiatives that we are looking at the moment. As I mentioned earlier, PRK is in the process of transformation. We will try to explore new business model or modalities for PRK to be the community hub to further transform the provision of the using services to advance the livelihood and income generation of the local communities. There are two focus areas of the transformation. One is the building the aspirational future of PIK. There are two business models being considered at the moment. One is the community cooperative approach, and the second one is the community entrepreneurial approach. The focus area 2 is basically looking at the potential revenue generating activities. For example, the parcel pickup and drop off in collaboration with the courier services, and also transforming the PRK as the local product aggregator and marketplace. The second one is the introduction of new programs for the PRK, say product review in studio, and then we are also working with Shopee and Lazada on the online promotion and also product marketing. Okay, in terms of challenges, as you are aware, Sarawak is almost the size of Semenanjung. The challenges is basically the same with the parts of the states in Malaysia. Number one is the stable 24 hours electricity supply. Second one is the logistics due to the vast terrain of the Sarawak, with some of the areas are still only accessible with the riverine transportation and also logging work. Second one is the sparse population and also density of the population in Sarawak. And the fourth one is the land use concerns with the native lands and multiple claimants to the, especially to our telecommunication tower site. And the last one is the unique position of Sarawak. I would say the exclusivity in place in Sarawak whereby only locally registered entities are allowed to carry out telecom facilities works in the States. So basically, that is my presentation for today. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Adiman. Let me introduce the next speakers, Mr. Law and Mr. McCarthy. Mr. Law has 13 years of experience as an academician, researcher, and practitioner of ICT for Rural Development, ICT for RD. He started his career as an information technology project manager in Unimas and helped in deploying internet services in 10 remote sites of East and West Malaysia. An explorer of digital technologies for the transformation of the tourism sector. Since 2016, Gary and McCarthy have been working together to establish meaningful internet connectivity in the Bawang Asam community and to promote the place as a tourism destination of Iban culture and heritage. We will play a recorded video for this.
It will be Mekete Anakindao. Both of us will be presenting this meaningful connectivity. So this project is basically it's a research pilot project from UCTS, Tatasonic, Sarawak Energy, and Sakofa. So as an introduction, actually the project started in 2018. It's actually a pilot project, basically to enhance internet access for the rural folk in Bawang Asam. So this is a broadband power line project. So what we actually initially started to do for this project is basically we want to giving internet to the rural folk to promote tourism because there is a homestay in Bawang Asam. So the research project basically started way back in 2014, where we first engagement with the Bawang Asam community because we're trying to promote e-tourism for them, and at the same time we do some internet training through the One Malaysia Internet Center. We call it the Pusat Internet Community. So this is how we started. So I'll pass the time now to Mac to continue to introduce to you where is Bawang Asam.
Hello semua, saya Mekiti Anak Gindao selaku pengurusi homestay Rumah Panjang Bawang Asam. Kampung Bawang Asam terletak lebih kurang 40 km dari Bandar Sibu, terletak di perairan Sungai Lebaan.
So Mac has just now introduced himself, and he just mentioned that Bawang Asam is about 40 kilometers away from Sibu town and is actually located nearby the Lebaan River.
Dari Kuala Lumpur ke Sibu menggunakan pesawat, Sibu Airport ke Kampung Bawang Asam mengambil masa dalam 1 jam. Kadang-kadang untuk pergi ada masanya banjir tapi masih boleh sampai.
If we are taking a flight from KL to Sibu, it will take us approximately about 1 hour to reach Bawang Asam, and sometimes there will be some minor flooding. It's not very serious, but it's just minor flooding that will be happening around because of the tide from the river.
Kampung Bawang Asam ada 9 buah rumah panjang, 295 pintu, 1,600 lebih penduduk.
In Bawang Asam, there is 9 long house with 295 doors, approximately about 1,600 villages.
Terdapat juga kemudahan asas, jalan raya, api air, klinik, sekolah, pusat internet terbaru BPL atas kerjasama MCMC, UCS, Datasonic, Sagofa dan Sarawak Energy.
And for the facility, there is road access, there is water, there is electricity, there is a clinic, there is a school, then also internet community center, and the latest one is the broadband over power line (BPL) with the help from MCMC, UCTS, Tata Sonic, Sakofa, and Sarawak Energy.
Datanglah ke kampung Bawang Asan dan homestay Rumah Panjang Bawang Asan apabila COVID-19 sudah tiada.
Welcome to Bawang Asan Homestay when the COVID-19 is over.
Menikmati suasana kampung mengenali adat resam, kebudayaan dan makanan tradisional ayam panso.
Come and enjoy the environment of the village and also to know the culture and the heritage of the Iban people, and also to enjoy the delicacy, the traditional delicacy ayam panso, chicken in the bamboo.
Adanya internet, komuniti dan pelajar boleh belajar benda baru anjuran MCMC dan UCTS.
So with internet, the community actually and also student can learn new things organized by MCMC and UCTS. So I will also mention about how this smart partnership coming from this BPL, Broadband over Power Line project. We started in 2018, as we mentioned that our partner will be from Sarawak Energy, Tata Sonic, and Sakofa. So basically, the whole internet connection is actually to supply a broadband line through existing electricity power line to the long houses. This is how we do it. We beam from a fixed wireless access from the tower, nearest tower, all the way to this electric pole to go into two long houses, which is Rumah Jimbun and also Rumah Tennis. So this is how the view light from the point 1 is the tower, point number 2 and 3 and 4 is electricity pole, and bandwidth, the internet bandwidth is actually pumped into the electricity line and all the way into the long house and be taken out using the special modem to break up the electricity and the internet bandwidth to be used in Wi-Fi.
Akhir sekali, pondok internet diwujudkan apabila MOC pada tahun 2020 dan 2021.
Lastly is an initiative from the long house. They actually pull up internet hut, which when during the MCO in year of 2020 and 2021.
Tujuan untuk pelajar mendapatkan line internet.
The main objective is actually to let the student to use the internet line for study.
Supaya pelajar dapat menerima maklumat dari sekolah, terutama kerja rumah yang diberikan kepada pelajar oleh guru.
The main thing is for the students actually to do their homework from the school, because the school teacher will give them homework through WhatsApp.
Dan juga saya ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Encik Adiman dari MCMC kerana memberi kepercayaan kepada Kampung Bawang Asan untuk menerima kemudahan internet.
And I want to express my thankfulness to Encik Adiman from MCMC, which they give us the opportunity for this internet facility in the Bawang Asan Longhouse.
Terima kasih kepada Encik Gary kerana sokongan hingga berjaya dalam projek BPL.
And special thanks also to Mr. Gary for his support for this BPL project to be successful.
Terima kasih kepada Tata Sonic, Sarawak Energy, Sakofa kerana bekerjasama untuk menjayakan projek BPL juga.
Also thanks to Tata Sonic, Sarawak Energy, Sakofa for their cooperation and also for their understanding to make this project a success.
Untuk Encik Adiman, boleh tak MCMC pantau internet di Bawang Asan kerana hilang dan tiada berfungsi sebelum bulan puasa 2021?
And also, just to express to Mr. Adiman, maybe can to really take a look of the line internet in Bawang Asan, because since the Hari Raya, then the line has been unstable and has been disconnected. So this is actually from Mac from the Longhouse.
Okey, hanya itu saja. Terima kasih.
So that's all from Mac, and thank you very much. So I just want to conclude that what we are thankful is that internet can be very meaningful when it's been used in a good way. So we can see in Bawang Asan, the internet actually been used for the student, because students are not afford to subscribe to internet line, so they need to use a free internet line. And this is what the initiative come out from Mac, from the Longhouse, which they provide free internet for the student. You know, they call it the Pondot internet hut for them to do study. So this is something very meaningful, come up from the community, for the community, and with the community. Thank you very much.
What we call a class license structure is whereby we allow the operations of infrastructure and network services to the niche community or markets in the state. So it's a bit different from the individual license, we call it, in terms of the reach of the network itself. For the individual license, the fee is about, I think, it's 50,000 ringgit per year. And then for the class license, it is, I think, 2,500 ringgit per year. Yes, this is something that can we look into, where we can expand the maybe the definition of our class license to include also the provision of network for the community. So there is a similarity in terms of the implementation of the community network, what being said just now.
All right. So I think
remember that actually the Barrio community, Barrio Radio, if I'm not mistaken, they wanted to apply for the community radio license from MCMC, but along the way it was scrapped. I'm not sure why, but at the time you were willing to accommodate that, maybe they can, try again.
All right. So I think we have another 2 questions coming in. Greetings from ICT Unimas. Thank you to all the speakers. And the question is directed to Mr. Adiman as well. How do you see the future role of PIK as an agent to empower society in the upcoming e-commerce era? And Carlos would also like to know how broadband over power line, BPL, actually fits in the Malaysian regulatory framework.
Maybe I answer the first question first on the future of PIK. So as I mentioned in my paper just now, we are in the process of transforming the PIK. We are looking at several models in terms of the sustainability of the PIK itself. One of it is the cooperative model, and the other one is entrepreneur-led PIK. And in terms of the role of the PIK as an agent to empower society, we are working with several entities. One of it is the Jabatan Kebajikan Masyarakat, or the State Welfare Department, where we try to embark on the entrepreneurship development program with the participant of micro entrepreneurship program rolled out by the Jabatan Kebajikan Masyarakat. So to us, PIK is a touch point, is a community hub where it is being also perceived as a change agent to MCMC. And the second one is on the BPL, how BPL fits in the Malaysian regulatory framework. I have to be honest here, Dr. Carlos, I'm not very familiar with the BPL rollout in Malaysia. Yes, the subject was being discussed a few years ago on the rollout of BPL, but it has seen again receded. Maybe I can reply to you in offline on this. Is it okay with you?
Dr. Ray Moreno?
I'll send you email.
Sorry, I was answering on the chat. Yes, it would be great to
Okay,
continue
yeah.
information offline. Thank you very much, Adiman.
Thank you, Dr. Ramos.
Okay, I think we have extended some of the time, and thank you to all the speakers. And then it was very insightful for us to plan for our future research. And with this, we will end the session for panel discussion. Thank you very much.